Hi and good morning to all our lovely panelists here today. We have a very important topic to discuss today, which will focus on is India doing enough for its veterans as they transition into their second innings? And I have the panel here today, which is from the fraternity, General Chauhan, representing AWPO. We have from the corporate side, Lavanya and Colonel Ranjan, representing their respective organizations, and broadly in terms of how veterans and corporate leaders help integrate veterans in their ecosystem. I'd quickly, first of all, welcome you all, guys. Thank you so much for making time. Truly appreciate it. And I want to maybe just take a minute for you all to quickly introduce yourself for the broader audience, and we get started from there. Why don't we start with Lavanya, you, if that's okay?
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having me on this, wonderful panel today. My name is Lavanya Srinagesh, and I currently work with CGIR, which is a STEM-based organization working in the international development space. Prior to this, I spent 16 odd years with Genpact, and overall have roughly 24 years of experience in learning and development, HR, CSR, and most importantly, inclusion.
Thanks for that, Lavanya. Thank you so much. General Chauhan, do you want to go next, please?
Yeah. Okay. I am Major General Ajay Chauhan, and I am an infantry officer. I retired about 4 years back, 5 years back rather, and now I've been heading this organization called the Army Welfare Placement Organization. This is an organization tailor-made for the Army, and essentially it is mandated for placement of the veterans who retire from the Army, including officers, JCOs, and other ranks. In addition to this, we also provide placement opportunities or look for second career opportunities for the widows of the martyrs, the dependents, and the wards. So we have a large canvas of I call them national resource, which can be leveraged. And definitely, if I have such, with Lavanya having such a wonderful, corporate experience, would have definitely seen in this domain how the veterans, and I see Rahul Ranjan as well, who is a veteran. And I was not aware that, you are getting a colonel, another colonel here. But it's indeed a pleasure, coming on this platform and interacting with you all. I look forward for a very, very healthy and a fruitful discussion. Yeah,
thank you. Thank you, Chauhan. Colonel Ranjan, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. So I think at the outset, Rashmi, really appreciate the nobility of the job that you've undertaken. I think there are not very many people out there who are trying to help the veterans transition smoothly into the corporate sector. So I think that's really kudos to you. Very brave, a task that you've undertaken, because typically we all understand uh, veterans when they move out of uniform, it's like taking fish out of water. So they just don't know what to do. And some kind of hand holding during transitioning is a very important step. So thanks for that. And good afternoon, Lavanya. Great to meet you here. And really honored to be with General Chauhan, who's such a decorated and senior officer of our great army. So really proud to be here. So a little word about me. So I'm Colonel Rahul Ranjan. I'm a veteran. I retired in 2021. I served in the Corps of Engineers of Indian Army for 22 years. I commanded my unit in Kargil, and then I was in Army headquarters. I was heading procurement in Army headquarters for nearly about 3 years. And that's when in 21 I transitioned into corporate. And currently I'm in Flipkart. I'm heading the procurement vertical for infrastructure and automation for the Flipkart group of companies. Really excited to be here, and I hope, while I'm out of uniform, but the soul is still there. I hope I can contribute effectively for the veterans' cause in whatever manner best that I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Colonel Ranjan, and equally excited about this. And as you know, I think I have a very simple job here this side after my corporate stint of about 17 years with Genpact. Here I'm CEO, co-founder, kind of managing multiple things, but it's an honor to be working for this community, something very close to my heart and something that I always wanted to build around. So we are here to support veterans as they transition into bigger, better, exciting roles, and that's why all these partnerships conversations are so very important to open more doors. With that, I'd like to quickly kick this off. And my first question, if I can get some reaction from General Chauhan, especially because where you sit and you interact with so many organizations as well as veterans, what do you feel are some of the things that we are missing in the process today? And obviously, what's really working well, we don't need to touch. I would love to get your reactions there.
Yeah. When we talk of, when you're talking veteran, we must look at what is actually missing is the awareness. That is first thing I would like to highlight here. That people are still looking at a veteran. It's been 75 years. This army has been there, and every day you find examples of, the army did, defense forces did this and different. Not, I'm not quoting what happened in the last week per se, but as far as the skill sets are concerned, you see, we are four of us speaking here, and 50% I have won because we are two army officers here. Okay, so they come with a lot of skill sets. We, as such, our perception is a veteran is fit for a security job. I think we have to overcome this. A veteran comes with tremendous amount of skills, a tremendous amount of experience, and experience is not sitting on the chair and making, gaining this kind of an experience. It is a unprecedented challenges which come on a day-to-day basis. So, which creating a visibility is a major challenge for us. Despite, and Rahul will bear with me that even if he's in Flipkart, he's got 18 years or 20 years of experience in the army and then going into a corporate sector. I think we have to create awareness in the corporate, and the corporate has to recognize the strengths what the ex-servicemen or the veterans carry with them. We are still, you should explore on the strengths of the veterans which they have and not the strengths with the corporate. Definitely, you have a very systematic method in your organization, and these two organizations go very beautifully together, whether it is corporate or what is missing is the transition part. So therefore, one is the visibility of the skill set of veterans, and second, I would say, is the transition into the civil role, which I think the corporate have to recognize.
Fair enough. And I think that's a very, very important point, General Chauhan, you bring in. Awareness, I think, on both the sides. Even veterans aren't really sure about the industries, the segments, the sectors they can target. And of course, there is a lack of understanding at the larger private sector organizations as well. I'd like to quickly maybe get some reaction from Lavanya, you or Colonel Ranjan on the same.
Sure, I'm happy to go, and I couldn't agree with General Chauhan more. I think the reality is when you think about it, when an application comes in, you see veteran or ex-serviceman. What you don't focus on is the skill set the serviceman is bringing. You assume that the skill set is really all about saving the country, right? At the end of the day. But if you look at Colonel Rahul on this call, he comes with an engineering background, and that is a strong skill, which is extremely relevant to the corporate sector. So I think what we have to recognize as the corporate sector is that being in the army is not just about infantry. It's about many, many more things than that. And there is a significant degree of skill and education and capability that can be leveraged into the corporate sector. The other element to think about is this idea of what is the future of work. The future of work is really about bringing this dynamic, inclusive, cognitive, experiential thinking that's going to help us solve problems in a much better way for the future, for ourselves and for our clients. Now, when you think of inclusion, you think of an entire segment of extremely qualified individuals that could bring an entirely unique perspective to how we do our business in the future. I think the sad thing about the corporate sector to some extent is that we typecast people, right? You have 15 years of experience in HR, so you will do HR. You are, you've done your MBA, so you'll do this. You have experience in coding, etc. So you'll do certain kind of job, but we don't recognize the flexibility and the fungibility between job roles, and the credibility experiences of different kinds bring to making certain roles better by using that. So that's my perspective. And as you think of transition, I think, we talk about transition, and actually both General Chauhan and Rahul are in a much better place to talk about that than I am. But my perspective on this is that we make it about moving away from the uniform into civilian life, right? But I think the reality is that it's a little bit about moving away from a certain way of life to a less organized way of life, right? The corporate sector can be extremely disorganized, and in many ways requires you to just readjust your your way of thinking and your goalpost entirely, right? So I think that is the transition that's required to some extent, because those who made that transition, and I speak of colleagues that I have worked with, are extremely successful in various fields within the corporate space. So it is also behoven on the corporate to recognize that there is a degree of organization that we need to have also to give people that sense of purpose and alignment when they join organizations, rather than this idea of come join us, we'll give you a great onboarding experience, and then after that you figure it out, right? So I think it's the you figure it out that's more of a challenge than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lavanya, for putting it out there. It was really, really absolutely clear. I think to add to what General Chauhan said and what you said, in terms of lack of awareness, which is there in the corporate sector, uh, there are a lot of soft skills of veterans, I think, which corporate, if they harness it well, it will be really fruitful. So, for example, uh, any army guy, again, and when I'm saying army guy, it is not about engineers, it is not about infantry, right? So for example, there is a domain of project management, right? And that is across the board. Infantry folks also undergo project management, and engineer guys will also do project management, right? So in army, you'll have an end-to-end perspective. So when I was commanding my unit in Kargil, we had multiple projects going on at multiple locations. So there'll be a captain or a major or a lieutenant colonel who will have end-to-end view. He will know what is the design aspect of the project that he's undertaking. He will know what is the procurement aspect of what is being done. He will also be managing the project execution. So he'll have complete perspective, and the beauty of that arrangement is that the roles are very fungible. So when a guy goes for a month's leave, a guy who's ahead at the forward post executing a project, he can come back and take on the charter of a design and planning officer. So that's a tremendous asset, and that brings a lot of mental agility in the armed forces personnel. So, talking on the adaptability part, which you said, yes, I agree with you that the world is very different in the corporate world. But from an adaptability perspective, I think there could be nothing better than an armed forces guy, because every 2 years he's changing the environment, right? He's worked in a unit environment, then he goes for a staff tenure somewhere where the context is totally different. His job role is totally different. In the same job role, he's donning multiple hats. In the morning, he's running in PT with his company. He's a leader. in the evening he's managing a mess party, which which is a lot of organizational skills. So there's a lot of mental agility which armed forces personnel have. And lastly, I think I want to just touch upon the learnability part of it. So I don't know how much people know, but in armed forces, I think learning is something which is very, very serious affair. So if I start counting my courses which I have undergone in armed forces, the list will go endless, and it becomes a second habit. So even after transitioning into corporate, I don't think there'll be a single day which goes wherein I'm not trying to learn something new. So my latest fad is how do I get on speed with data and AI, which is the buzzword. So how can I incorporate AI in my function? So and it comes very naturally to us. So I think if we are able to tap on these aspects of veterans, it will be really fruitful for the corporate as a whole. Yeah.
Yes, John.
Yeah. Very valid point. Even Lavanya has brought, and as well as Rahul. One thing I must tell you now that, both of them have brought their own perspective. Rahul having an experience in the army and then now working in the corporate. Lavanya having a wonderful experience of almost 18 to 20 years in the corporate sector. What we should look at the veteran is a comprehensive package. We should not I recently went to one of the fintech companies in Bombay. I was one of the panelists there as well. So I generally advocate is don't put them in. What we do is generally while your structure is that way, your organization is that way, that you put them into various silos of HR or administration or operations or logistics. This is how you put them in these different verticals. Um, while that is definitely very good, but try them as a comprehensive package kind of a thing is very good in crisis management, crisis response mechanism, what he highlighted. And second is generally people say that his education or he doesn't have that kind of an experience. Um, he mentioned about the courses every 2 years. Every a person when he retires, like I retired as whatever rank I retired, I would have done almost 12 to 15 courses. So every 2 year, every 1 year or 1.5 years, we do one course, and that is how is the graph which goes when you talk of trainability or gaining experience. And this is not only in one field; it is in different field. I would have done 12, 13 courses in different verticals, whether it is logistics, operations, administration, vehicle fleet management as a vehicle, I can count here. So these are the various skill set one gains within this organization. And I'm not talking for myself only. It is with every individual. If he retires at a younger rank or it is directly his experience is directly proportional to his training part and training across the service. I did engineering, or Rahul did engineering in the army. He would have done M.Tech also. People go for PhD also. That is outside, but within the organization, lower level management, administration, and management at senior level management, at higher level management. So this is how we train our people, and similarly at the JCOs and other ranks as well. So there is a fair amount of effort which has been made in training, because army is all about training and in different fields altogether. So the bridge fell in during the Commonwealth Games, and who did? Guys like Rahul and all did it within 48 hours. The back is stuck to the wall. It is only these organizations which come to fore, to lend their shoulders. Yeah.
If I may, Rashmi and General Chauhan, I think you raise a great point, right? When corporates hire, you hire with the term relevant experience, right? Relevant experience in a particular domain or area, whatever it is. And I think the challenge here is when you think of inclusion, then you're looking at hiring for potential as opposed to relevant experience. Now, I may have, for example, done HR in a not-for-profit, but that doesn't make my experience any less relevant when you think about transitioning to a corporate. But at the same time, the corporate will say, you don't have a relevant experience in our line of work. So I think the big fundamental shift that has to happen, which is that you're hiring for potential to do a role, potential to contribute to a role. And you've listed so many things between, Rahul and yourself, which is the idea of one, of course, the courses, the education, and therefore the quantum of skill available and that is relevant. The other, which is I think the most important thing, right, which is the idea of decision making in complex circumstances, and navigation and influence when you're thinking of negotiating towards an outcome as well. Now, I can't think of anything more relevant than that in today's day and age in whichever environment you're looking at. But, those are just some of the thoughts I had while you were speaking.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Lavanya, for sharing that, and Kanranjan and Janil Johan as well. I think very, very pertinent points brought in here. And I just want to maybe add in here in terms of training, which we spoke about. I think more and more veterans, as I interact with them, they are so much aware of it. They know they have to upskill. They know they have to learn, and they are very open, very comfortable with that. They understand the cultural aspect, Lavanya, you spoke about. It's a different lingo, it's a different world for them. And the good thing is that maybe 10 years back they would be a little more hesitant and closed, but today I think that officer men who are coming, they're very much aware of the fact that they have to make that investment. They have to invest. They have to understand, the new world that they're going to get into. And I think that acceptance is really important and refreshing, because then that sets you up for success, because you're going to work on it. And I see so many people really taking this head on, starting preparing for things, doing courses outside of the regular courses that they are definitely get exposed to. And that's really heartening to see, which makes them even more suitable for our roles in the corporate setup. And I think we talked about the adaptability, and how they can definitely find their feet. The one thing I've come across as a skill, which I feel is something every company, every CHR or every CXO would want in the team, is a problem solver. You got a problem, you need someone. And Lavanya, we have worked together, guys. So I know how many times I would just be given a work without any syrup of it to figure it out. Just we got this, figure it out. And you want such people. You want people who are not scared of it, who take it head on, and who are able to think through, innovate, curious, and just go about it. So I think, and that comes very naturally to our forces, because of the condition they work in, because of the places they serve. It's one thing to sit in an AC office and work 10 hours, and we crib about that. But imagine the same situation when you are guarding our borders, when you are maybe serving in RR, or you're sitting in Siachen. So I think it just adds on to the complexities, and this whole community is really equipped to handle that, right? So I just thought I'd bring that up. And I think we've spoken about the struggles and the challenges. So I think now I want to get into your perspective in terms of when we want to make it happen from the execution standpoint. Okay. Do you think a policy shift, backed by government mandate, or a corporate pledge will really make change, will really bring in that kind of visibility to the veteran talent in corporate landscape? What do you think is more important and help us drive more traction? Maybe we'll start with Lavanya. Why don't we start with you?
So I have a slightly different perspective, Rashmi. I think what the miss is actually, it's like building a bridge where one side is a little higher and the other side is a little lower. So the two are not always meeting when you're thinking of skill building and then aligning it with recruitment, right? So I think here is the thing. Ultimately, you want people to have careers and to have an opportunity to be extremely successful at their jobs, and the opportunity to grow within the organization. That is, I think, a commitment both from the armed forces side as well as the corporate side that really needs to be made. Now, what makes that commitment? We've talked about all of the strengths that veterans have, but and we've talked about the challenges vis-a-vis transitioning as well. So to me, I think it's really about taking a step back and saying, okay, let's do some skill mapping and see what are those specific roles we can build for individuals so that they are successful in their careers, right? Because at the end of the day, I mean, listen, when you think of diversity and inclusion, I'm a woman. I would hate to believe that I was hired or grew because of a quota system, right? You want to feel your success is entirely dependent on you and your capabilities and what you bring to the table. So I think the issue is that mismatched alignment, because right now we hire people in boxes, right? So if you are if you're female, you'll be great at HR. If you're a veteran, it'll be security, admin, logistics. If you are you get kind of put into certain boxes, and that's how it happens. But my thought is that what are the skills specific roles need, and what are the skills we need to develop? 90% of those skills are probably already with that individual. It's about creating that final bridge over. So to me, I think that is the critical step that needs to be taken between both sides, so to speak.
Absolutely. Fair enough. Yeah, can we get some reaction, General Chauhan?
Yeah, yeah. I really like the way Lavanya spoke about the quota system. No one would like to go into a quota system. Absolutely. Policies are like incentives and definitely motivating. But policies can't create what others are looking at. End of the day, it is the end product you have to see, whether he's able to deliver it or not. I'm as a head of an organization which has got almost 4 lakh ex-servicemen with me. I would wherever I go, I tell the corporate, don't take it as a welfare measure. Take them on the competence. Yes, they may not be able to speak such good English or this kind of, because their job never wanted them to actually, get onto this kind of a requirement, because every organization have got a different job role set for them. Here he had to fight, and therefore the requirement at the borders and wherever, whatever have you. So when you look at them, take them on competence. One. Second is that you, as a corporate, one has to look at how can we create an environment where we have a smooth transition. I definitely call it learning programs. Most of the corporate houses have learning programs like KPMG's got, or BCG has got, other corporates have also got. These learning programs or transition programs create those kind of an environment, give them an orientation, and select them and take. Don't take them, but consider veterans as on a welfare. You are doing a charity. Sorry, they will just don't do that, because it will deteriorate the quality of personnel coming in. I'm not saying, I'm not vouching for 100% this thing, but definitely please take them on competence and try and empower them rather, as an intern or an apprentice. Take them for 3 months, train them. End of the day, carry out a screening or a test or whatever you have at evaluation at your level, and select the best user. While it should not be go other way around. I'll give you one example, since with no offense made to Rahul Ranjan, he's from Flipkart. They asked 700. They asked people from us. They took 700 people. Total selected 2. All right. So that also should not be, because then our selection, there is a flaw in our selection system as well, or a screening system. So I always feel, and taking them as an apprentice, and then subsequently absorbing them. We did with Tata Advanced Systems Limited. We did with one or two more organizations, and people have done very well. I will tell you, we just sent people to Japan. They learned language here, the initial language or basic language. They went to the All Nippon Airways, and the feedback which we have got was that one is their commitment, the second is the discipline, and third is the dedication. They were working with All Nippon Airways in Japan, and they did a wonderful job. They took 10 of them. Mind you, the Japanese team came to my office to select these people. And they are not officers or JCOs. They are normal, they are NCOs who have gone there. And not for any technical this thing. It's a mix from engineers, EME, infantry, artillery. So it was a happy mix of personnel. But they were selected. And how many people got? We started with 87. We homed down to 10. We provided 37 people during the interview. They selected 10. So take them on competence. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think very valid points, General Chauhan. We'll maybe quickly get reactions, Colonel Rahul as well.
Yeah. I think thanks for sharing these aspects, General Chauhan sir. I think I totally agree with you that any selection in any corporate organization has to be on purely on merit, and there is no room for any welfare. And I'm pretty sure, I think more than I would say 90% of the veterans would automatically qualify on merit of what value that they can bring. I think before we get to this stage, from a policy intervention perspective, if I had my wish granted, I would really want that there could be some kind of awareness in the corporates and even in the B schools maybe, that what the armed forces are all about, right? So say for example, what does the infantry do, what does the engineers do, so and how do you relate it to a corporate outcomes? So how can a guy from a particular arm or service contribute in corporate, right? So that understanding would be really very, very important, so that people understand that, okay, there is much more this person has experience in terms of what value he can bring to the table. And let's just face it, I think any organization would hire any veteran if he sees any value, right? Eventually, businesses are all about profit, right? So it has to be fair to both the parties. So therefore, I think some kind of awareness would kind of help them break the barriers that, okay, veterans can be considered for roles which are beyond security and admin as well. So, yeah.
I could just add, and I consider myself fortunate because while my immediate family is not from the services, between it's particularly from my husband's family and so on, they're very aligned with the services and have been with the services. And as a result, I think there's a perspective that I have that most civilians don't have, which is one, how hard it is to get into the armed services, right? I think there is a 5 or 6 step round that you have to go through to even qualify to be a part of the services. To your point, Rahul, what do you do? I mean, as I said, it's this lack of knowledge in terms of what happens once a person is taken in, how are they grown, how are they developed, and then what are their skills at the end of it. You just assume that people are only capable or exposed to one or two different types of things. Now, if I were recruiting just for myself and I was the CEO of an organization, I would place a great deal of value on a person who has been, evaluated psychologically before they join, because then you know how steady they are, the skills that they've acquired during their time, how they've applied those skills in actuality in very complex scenarios. And even if it's not time of war and those complex scenarios are not haven't been, as such, but the kind of simulations people go through, the kind of things individuals are willing to do that may not be in their job description. Right. So today, and I think you gave that example, right? I could be project managing one thing, and then the next evening I could be organizing a party in the mess. the fact is you have an individual today who believes that their duty is critical and will not say no. There is this idea of reliability, which I think for any organization, Rashmi, you alluded to that a little bit when you spoke, which is that this is an individual you can rely on, that will get the job done at the end of the day in the best possible way. And again, I say I had the good fortune of working with a veteran in my previous organization. And I think one of the things that he did, which was really special, was that sense of team. His team was so engaged and connected vis-a-vis any other team. And that is another thing, right? I mean, think of the retention you can have in your organization if you have a leader that creates that sense of engagement and team. So I think there are some of the, the domain aspects, sure, but I think there are so many aspects that as civilians we are blissfully ignorant about and pontificate on it at the end of the day when you're making decisions. So that's just a perspective that I had.
Good.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I see it, I think time and again we see it. And there are obviously some really good and some not so good examples in any organization. And that creates perception for the hiring team, for the CXOs to see whether the next person for the forces is coming in or not. But I think that broader thing is more and more awareness, more and more representation in of the organizations. Having people at those critical spots where they can impact, create difference, and that becomes then something that people look up to and see value in it. Because I think it's one thing, whenever I'm actually talking to a CHRO, I say that please don't hire a veteran because you have a quota of 2% diversity. For that's not the real diversity then you're driving in. Hire a veteran for the impact that the person will generate. And yes, be a little patient starting, at least when the person is coming in. You do that for any new hire as part of the integration process. And then I think just see what magic the person is capable of creating. And that's something really, really important. Many leaders understand that they have to give opportunity, and that representation has to come slowly but surely in the pockets to make an impact. So while policy, of course, can drive things, but yeah, at the end of the day, in each of these corporates, how the talent is perceived, integrated, and how the impact, and ultimately, I think that impact and realization of that is something which will get the next slate in. So that's really important. All right. I think we have some time for the last parting thoughts in terms of, so we spoke about the corporate side, any thoughts on what a veteran should invest in, quick one thing, two things we believe veteran must do as they prepare for the transition, or even for someone who's been working in corporate sector, but now looking at getting into something else. Very quickly, maybe General Chauhan, we can start with you.
Yeah, and definitely this problem we see every day, and most of the veterans, in the army, they definitely empower themselves, or for transition. Or I would not say transition, because we do get opportunities. One, the courses which we talked about, then people go in for various study leaves and all, for empowering themselves on the niche colleges like MBAs from IIMs and all. They undergo. They also do MTechs. So that is one. I think preparing themselves. Superannuation is a inevitable kind of a thing. Everyone has to retire from any organization, wherever you. Yesterday, I had a get together at my place. So she's been into education sector for a long time, and she says after 4 years or 5 years, I will also superannuate. But she's with her talent. So superannuation is inevitable. And earlier we understand, or where earlier we realize is better, and from that thereafter one should start working towards transition. Here in our organization, what the organization wanted, you've been doing this. Like Rahul is an engineer, he's got a very, very different charter of duties carved for himself in the engineer regiment. But once he's out of this thing, He talked about event management. He talked about project management. He talked about the project management professional. So these are the things which one has to see and align themselves. Till now, superannuation is not that you stop working. It is time is over with this organization. You have done what you wanted, and now get into a different role. Start working towards it, and because age is just a number, I would say. So but definitely one has to prepare. I say today, a veteran has to get into. He has to be tech savvy, which is a necessity. He has to be AI is coming up in a big way. So that is another aspect where one has to look at. Plus, updating himself with the reality, that is a very, very important facet, I thought, which we have to tell our veterans. I definitely tell them that earlier it was only doctors and engineers we used to think of, but today when you retire, you have host of options available for you. But start early, start thinking early, and start looking in that direction, because the challenge which we see here, 90% of them have not actually seen kabhi ghar jaake dekhenge. So I think that is one part. Rahul, you will bear with me. You ask any जवान, any officer, any JCO, सर अभी जाएंगे फिर देखेंगे कि हमने क्या करना है. One has to be get smart. Start looking from today itself. Start seeing what are the options available, and then start preparing for it. So that is, I thought, should be the line of work for our veterans. Yeah.
Thanks, Rahul, for it. All right. Lavanya, Rahul, anyone? Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. So I'll add to this part because ever since I have transitioned from uniform to the corporate world, every day is a new day. So I think first and foremost thing that one really needs to do, and I'm being very candid here, I think is the mindset shift, right? So I think I was what I was in army, and the day I hung my uniform, I have to gracefully accept that and move on, right? So I have to maybe get rid of my rank and whatever I was doing, which was a past, embrace the future, right? So that mindset shift is very, very important. Also, see what happens when you serve in the armed forces kind of organization for so long. You have a particular way of tackling things, right? So, army, by the nature of organization, it's a question of life and death, right? So, and typically how it happens is that whenever you tell something to somebody, it happens, it just happens like magic. So in your unit, you tell somebody to do something, there's no question that it will not be done. It will be done before you can even think. Whereas that's not the case outside in the corporate world. So you have to be accepting towards these changes. You have to be more tolerant to the ways of the world, the real ways of the world. In fact, it reminds me, once I transitioned, I was speaking to one of my uncles. So I said, he asked me, how is it going? I said, yeah, very different world. He said, no, this world is not different. You are coming from a different world. So I think you have to accept that part first. Second, from a upskilling perspective, I think a lot of us, we feel because your growth in armed forces somewhere is directly proportional to your academic brilliance that you exhibit during your service days, right? So a lot of veterans tend to naturally gravitate towards acquiring some certifications or MBAs or various kinds of things. While that's a should have thing that's important, I'm not denying that it's not important, but what is really important is that you have to understand the corporate context where they are coming from, which is a very different world. So how do you invest your time and energy in understanding what that corporate world is looking from you, and how do you kind of change yourself? And what's really important is your experience. So I hear a lot of things, a lot of people reach out to me and they say, I don't want to do security once I'm out of uniform. And I ask him, why do you want to say that you don't want to do security? I think that is something which is your core expertise. You've done all your life, you are an authority on the subject. When you go outside, people will listen to your point of view. That will come naturally to you. Why do you want to start a new chapter and start learning from A, B, and C. You have mastered this, and you can tackle it very effectively. What's the harm in managing security? So these kind of if I feel the mindset blocks, if we can get rid of, it's more about experience which will get you to a good level, right? It's not about acquiring a certification. I may do a PMP or a ABC certification or an MBA. There's a lot of MBA available in the market, but the kind of security experience that you have, you will not get from any B school. That's unparalleled, and that is something one has to leverage. Is in my point of view. So yeah, I think these couple of things if veterans keep in mind, it really will help them land at a good position. And given the kind of hardships that they have been through, the challenges that they've been through in the service, it will be a cakewalk outside in the corporate world. Yeah.
I
Very right.
completely
Rahul, you mentioned, you see, two things I would say here. One is the ego which is there, and the second is the rank. अगर ये दोनों चीज हटा के जेब में रख लो, I think he'll be a very successful person. All right. So I think it is applicable in all kind of areas, not only in armed forces. If two things, ego and rank, कि हम उधर CHRO थे तो इधर HRO बन गए. So these things यहाँ पे हम so and so थे तो अभी हम यहाँ आ गए. I'll give you a live example. Day before yesterday, 2 days back, we had a very important annual meeting. And from one of the top companies in the country, we had the CEO speaking. And he says that he gave an example. There was a captain in our organization, and he worked here. He's been working for 30 years. So, आज से 30 साल पहले, if he would have left the organization, the army, so otherwise, had he been in this organization, he would have reached a particular rank structure and in the ladder. So he retired, and then they just hired a brigadier rank officer. So कहता हम इससे बात कैसे सुनेंगे, वो तो कैप्टन है, हम उसके orders कैसे लेंगे? So these are the live examples. I feel one has to understand. And if he's a captain, he's putting 30 years of experience, I think he definitely has an edge over you. Have just entered into an organization, and उसको समझने में भी time लगता है. So these are live examples, and I love that the way he narrated the complete story. So I think very very valid. These two things in a mindset कि भाई हाँ हमने बाहर जाके पहले तो ये तो काम करना है कि नहीं करना, ये बड़ा जरूरी है. और अगर काम करना है तो ये दो चीज अगर आप हटा के जेब में रख लेंगे, so I think you will be a very very successful person. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's the fact of the matter is pride. Human pride and ego is a very hard thing to ditch, right? I guess that's why a lot of people are into spirituality, right? To find this balance. But the reality is that 9 times out of 10, whether you're from the armed forces or you're a civilian, your ego is front and center with you. And similarly, right, the corporate sector has ranks of its own. They just call it vice president, senior vice president, etc. But there is a strong hierarchy that exists in that space as well. So I think for me, the only advice I can give is advice I follow myself, which is operate from your area of strength. That's very important because you are the master of that universe and nobody can question from you. I think very important is to recognize what your developmental weaknesses are as well. Because if you think of a new job as sort of trying to enter the battlefield, then you realize that how you balance your developmental areas is as important as operating and understanding what your strengths are. The third thing I will say is don't look at a job description and see all of the things that you don't have, which is typically what people do, right? I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this. But to align your experience to the job description in terms of what you do have. Because the reality is, not one single human being fits 100% of a job description when you're applying. So recognize the strengths that you do have and align those with the job description. So that's just my little practical input.
That's wonderful. That's really thoughtful and so pertinent, Lavanya. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that we will wrap it up at that. Thank you so much, all of you all, for making time. I think some very important points coming out, and it's definitely going to help many, many veterans